Greetings, petrol heads. Welcome back to Automation the Car Company Tycoon Games. So today is the last day in this week of automation. So this is also the last review for this week. It is the Mongoss Premium by LM Gamer 456. It is a. He says it's a. The car is the size of a C class for CLA money, and we can see that there are 4 trims. 2.0T, 2.2S, 3.0S and 4.0R, which is the top end version. So what is this car exactly? Let's see what it's made of. It is an aluminium monocoque, longitudinal engine placement, double wishbone front suspension, multi-lane rear suspension, so that is pretty much, well, standard, I guess, or standard for the higher quality market, at least standard for the premium markets, and aluminium panels to, round this package up. As far as the styling goes, this is not very 2015-ish, I have to say. This is more like, I don't know, 90s kind of look, maybe early 2000s, but definitely not 2015s. It is very simplistic, and those big round taillights have kind of gone out of fashion recently. It's not really something you see anymore. And also these taillights, they, well, don't really look 2015-ish either. But apparently he didn't really put that much focus onto the design because, as we all know, it's the inner values in life that count. What counts is what lies beneath the skin. So let's see what that is. It is a river drive car, as expected, because we saw that it has longitudinal engine placement. So the 2-liter base version has an aluminium block, aluminium head engine. 4 cylinders, if I didn't mention that. It's a 4-valve per cylinder dual overhead cam setup with no VVL. It is exactly a square. Oh, that is actually, yeah, it is reduced in size, reduced in bore at least. The engine family size is larger, as you can see here. What is the maximum size? I think it's gonna be the 2.2 liters that the other version has. Okay, whatever. We get forged steel crank, I-beam steel conrods, and then forged pistons, which is, good quality, but not super expensive. Like, we don't have I-beam titanium conrods or anything like that. They are, as you can see, material cost for the I-beam steel is 6.02 a piece, and for I-beam titanium it's 212 a piece. So that's a very significant difference. And then the compression ratio is 8.4 to 1, 41 cam profile. Looks like we got a lot of boost on this turbo setup. Indeed we do. 1.2 bars. That's quite a lot for such a, relatively small engine. 39 compressor size, 31. This is the lowest possible turbine size, the smallest possible turbine size, and 1.03 AR ratio is pretty much where you'd expect it to be, I would say. Compressor size 39. Well, pretty small, and you can see that we have a very short torque plateau. It's only from like 2,700 to 3,000 and like 3,300 or something like that is where it makes its most torque, and then it drops off. But that also means that we have a very broad power band up top, and maybe that's overall better with a relatively low RPM limit. We'll see how this car performs anyway. Direct injection, single configuration, standard intake, so no surprises here. premium 95 fuel, so probably for the European market, as he says that it is, after all, a C-Class competitor for CLA kind of money. 14.0 fuel mixture is fine. Maybe for the base version you would maybe wanna lean this out a little bit more, because the smallest version is usually also the kind of eco version. I'm just saying you could get a little bit more economy out of this thing. Oh, and also, again, we have some more fuel octane left to play with. Would bring us up to 191 horsepower. And what else? The rev limit, I think, is a little high, considering that we make the maximum power at 5700 RPM. I don't think you need 800 RPMs of overrun. Usually 400 to 500 is totally fine. And as far as exhaust go, we don't have any other choice on the headers other than short cast, single exhaust, good exhaust diameter, high flow freeway cat, 2 reverse flow mufflers for very low loudness and good comfort as a result. In this car you get an 8-speed automatic standard apparently. Why do you have the option of an 8-speed automatic? Like, I can remember building 2015 cars with automatics and it only gave me the option of choosing up to 7-speed. That's weird, maybe they fixed that. In any case, third gear does not reach 100 km an hour. That is some very short gearing, that is. Medium compound road tires and a very sportiness focused steering, it seems. A very sportiness focused suspension setup. We get two 25mm tires up front and on the rear, 16-inch alloy rims. Yeah, they're fine. They suit this kind of car. Maybe like if you were really aiming towards Mercedes, you would go for 17s as standard, because I think that's what the C-Class comes with. I'm not totally sure on that though, don't quote me on that. Vented discs up front and on the rear with 3 pistons up front, 1 piston on the rear, just a tiny bit of brake fade. Let's see where that comes from. It must be the rear. Yes. Okay. But actually going down by 1 point did improve all of the stats except for safety. Well, it didn't really change safety, but it did add 0.1 drivability. So that's kind of weird. But in any case, we don't have an undertray on this car. No lips or wings or anything, so wing angles don't matter. Cooling airflow is just enough. And then the interior, we get 5 seats. Premium interior with +3 quality. All driver assist except launch control and the premium infotainment system. +7 quality in here, making sure that the components it has are just of very fine quality indeed, and then advanced safety with +3 quality as well. We get active sport springs with gas monotube dampers and plastic swappers. I'm not entirely sure why you went for the active sport springs on the base model, and that is meant to be competing with a C-Class, which is not really known for its sportiness. But okay, you could also make a good point of this being a competitor to the BMW 3 Series, which is in just the same kind of class, but with a different philosophy, if you will. We get a relatively balanced suspension setup. I guess he just stuck with the normal setup here. No bottoming out, so no need to change the ride height. And overall, 41.8 drivability, 29.3 sportiness, 52.1 comfort, 29.1 prestige, and 58.6 safety. Drivability is a little low, I think, for the base model. That probably has to do with the way the suspension is set up. I'm not entirely sure why the base model should have a suspension graph like this, like a steering graph like this, that is mostly focused towards sportiness. But maybe it'll convince me by being decently fast on the effort track. It does a 134.16, which is not bad, considering this is only the base version. But you know, I don't know if this really does the best job of making, you know, a great base model, especially considering this fuel economy. 11.5 liters per 100 kilometers for a 2-liter entry-level model is unacceptable, I would say. That is like, that's the sort of fuel economy we were at 30 years ago, and I don't think it's adequate for a Mercedes rival, especially because Mercedes engines are just, you know, probably some of the best or some of the most balanced engines in the world. They make decent amount of power, a decent torque, and also really good economy most of the time. And this doesn't really make a good competitor to a Mercedes, in my opinion, because of its engine. But let's see about the other trims. What about the 2.2S? Oh, so we get a different grille on here, and also some LEDs on the bottom here, and 2 exhaust pipes and the grille surrounding them and the number plate. So as far as the model tab goes, everything's gonna be the same. Trim. We got the full 2.2 liter in here with hyper-eutectic cast pistons and forged H-beam conrods. I'm not entirely sure why you changed that, given that the RPM limit is still the same. Maybe you wanted less emissions on this one. Or maybe you just misclicked it or changed it accidentally, I don't know. In this engine we have a 39 turbine size, 39 millimeters. Compressor is still the same. We also have a water-to-air medium intercooler, as opposed to the air-to-air that we had in a 2.0T. Also, we get a little bit of quality in the turbo section here. I think we had that in a 2.0 as well, if I remember correctly. 1.07 AR ratio and 1.21 bars of boost, so pretty similar there. And then we still got the direct injection, single configuration silent intake. Looks like we are optimizing our fuel octane here a little bit better, huh? Can we go for one more point in compression? No, that'll get the engine knocking. Still the same 14 fuel mixture and the same exhaust diameter, which is still fine. Also 2 reverse flow mufflers. We get 1000 RPM of overrun, which is probably a little bit too much. I think you could achieve quite a lot more reliability if you cut that down to, like, say 6000 RPM. That would give it, that would bring it up to 79. So it's actually not that much of a difference. But how much of a difference performance-wise does this make? We're gonna find out. So we get a sequential double clutch gearbox this time, probably just for the faster shifting times. Top speed is geared to 299, so we get a nice bit of overdrive. Viscous LSD, just like the 2.0 version. Again, very, very heavily sportiness focused on the suspension setup. We get sports tires on this car, huh? And then 17-inch rims. 17-inch alloy rims still. Again, we have pretty much the same brake setup here, but no brake fade, because they are a little bit bigger here. No under tray still, no lips, no wings. As far as interior goes, everything's the same as on the 2-liter version. And still the same suspension setup as far as spring steppers and sway bars go, but we have different stiffness, different camber, different tuning here. I think this is more of a sport setup, but with increased ride height. Overall, we're down on drivability, way up on sportiness. We get more comfort, more prestige, and slightly more safety, because it's also a few kilograms heavier. Funnily enough, the 2.2-liter version is more economical than the 2-liter version, but it is still kind of, you know, pretty thirsty for this day and age, I would say. It still does well in the family sport premium segment though. So you can't really complain in that department. However, economy is not a factor here for whatever reason. Overall, like, this is a good car, but it is just way too thirsty for our day and age, for considering what kind of engine it has, I think, at least. And what could you do about that? You could lean it out a little bit, that'll make a little bit of a difference, or you could just go for a lower boost. Of course, that'll also change your torque curve, like the amount of torque in general that you're making, your power curve. It'll affect a lot of things, but also it'll make your engine a lot more economical. So this is more of a sporty version, it seems. Let's see what this does around the airfield track. We do have more power and a double clutch gearbox now, so it should be pretty good. 127.9, that's actually kind of sports car territory, which for this kind of price is actually quite good. So the 2.2S is definitely way up in performance over the 2-liter, but still the economy is, it might put a lot of people off, especially when you compare this to a similarly powerful C-Class or CLA class for that matter. So the 3-liter, we get a V6 in here, 3 liters of capacity, still no VVL, aluminium block and head, 4 volts per cylinder, so we're consistent there. Forged steel crank, I-beam steel conrods, forged pistons, just like on the 2-liter 4-cylinder, and then 10.7 compression. That's a lot of compression for a turbocharged engine. 52 cam profile is somewhere in the middle, so pretty normal. VVT on all cams. Air-to-air large intercooler again, so we've moved away from the water-to-air that we had on the 2.2. Compressor is 47.7. How'd you get that? Is that the minimum size? I don't know, I don't want to try. 48.5 turbine size, 1.02 AR ratio, and only 0.65 bars of boost, excuse me. So we're going a little bit more on the economy side with this engine, it seems. Or maybe not with a 13.8 fuel mixture. Throttle per cylinder configuration is worth noting because that'll give us more throttle response. It'll give us a lot more responsiveness, more sportiness. 7100 RPM limit, and then 3-inch exhaust. Oh, it's an inline six. Excuse me, it's not a V6. It's an inline six. 322 horsepower is a result. And wait, what mufflers do we have? Reverse flow still okay. 322 horsepower, 406 newton meters of torque. That's plenty of torque. And 23.65% economy. So economy does not seem to be your strong point. We got pretty good performance index, good throttle response, and overall I like this torque curve the most so far. I mean it does have a little bit of a bump in the middle, but overall it's still pretty flat. It has a usable torque band. And gearbox, we get the same 7-speed double clutch it seems that we had in the 2.2. Still a lot of overdrive. Electric LSD on this one, huh? That's very expensive indeed. And then an oversteering suspension behavior, like a steering behavior. Sports compound road tires with +6 quality. We also have quality in the gearbox department. 17-inch alloy rims, 235s front and rear. You might wanna give this a little bit more rear tire. Vented discs still all around, a little bit bigger in size than on the other versions. No under tray. It'll also understeer at speed. Like, no, oversteer, excuse me. Did I say understeer? It'll oversteer at speed, it seems. Because it doesn't have any downforce or anything. And that is how this car is set up. Premium interior still, there's no changes at all in this department. And here we have, it seems the same sporty setup that we had in a 2.2 liter version. But with lower ride height it seems. I don't really think that this car would be very appealing to customers because of its oversteering nature. I mean, it is very competitive here in Family Sport Premium. However, in practice, if a car oversteers, like most people who would shy away immediately because they see oversteer as like the number one danger of all time. It's like, what do I do if my car starts oversteering? What if I'm gonna crash once my car starts sliding? There's nothing I can do about it. And most people don't know that you can actually control the slides, but still, a car that oversteers naturally just upon a turn-in, which is what this signalizes, is always a little bit of a handful. And it is definitely not what you'd want as a family sport premium car, as a family car in general. So even though it does very well in this market segment, I don't think that in practice it would sell very well. Maybe it can convince me with its performance around the track though. The 124.03, that is really quick. That is about the same as some supercars that they've tested on Top Gear. I can remember the TVR Sagaris with the 400 horsepower inline-six. That did 124.2, I think. So it's faster than that. However, like this car doesn't really seem to make very much sense because of its oversteering nature. I get that it's supposed to be sporty, but it is still meant to be like a rival for the Mercedes C-Class, I think. So, and as such, it is meant to be an everyday usable car, an everyday drivable car. And I don't think people would really want to take this car out on a rainy day, or let alone in winter when it's snowy. No, you don't want to drive that. Again, economy is, not this car's strong point. And I expect it'll be the same for the 4.0R, but at least that will be really fast, right? What do we got in here? We get a V8, 5 valves per cylinder this time, aluminium block and head as always. It's a 4-liter engine with billet steel crank, I-beam titanium conrod, forged pistons, +3 quality on the bottom end, +6 quality on the top end, 10.2 compression ratio. Wait, what's the bore and stroke? Pretty square actually. Like pretty much as square as it gets. 10.2 compression ratio. 70 cam profile is quite aggressive. And then we got a water to air large intercooler, not a huge one. To save weight, I guess, and costs and engineering time. We get 34 turbine size, that is like really low, and then 41.5 compressor size, 1.4 AR ratio, so that is maxed out, and the boost is relatively low. We get a nice little torque plateau between like, well, it's not a little one, but between like, well, when does it kick in? 2700 RPM until like, well, 5700 RPM, so we get a really, really good mid-range torque. You get really good mid-range torque for a long RPM range. You get a throttle per cylinder configuration, performance intake, 6900 RPM limit. Why did you cut it off early? To get around 500 horsepower? Well, okay, but you could tweak this a little bit to make the same power at the same RPM, but also have a little bit of overrun. Like the other engines all had at least, well, the D96 at 400 RPM. The others had so much RPM past its peak power, and what this means is that on this engine, when you shift and you end up at like 4500 RPM, you're down here as far as the power goes. Whereas if with the other engines, you had a more flat top end of the power curve, so you would be like here on the power, and then you would have just more power once you shift into the next gear. Short cast headers, dual exhaust, really big exhaust diameter, 2 3/4 of an inch. Reverse full Martha still for very low loudness. Reliability, because of all the positive quality that we have in this engine, is really good. 500 horsepower, 608 newton meters of torque, and we still get a sequential 7-speed gearbox, a lot of overdrive, electric LSD. Oh, this is all-wheel drive, huh? This is all-wheel drive. I didn't see. Was the 3-liter also all-wheel drive? We'll check back. Still an oversteering. This is still an oversteering car. 255s all around. Carbon ceramic brakes with 6 pistons up front, but only 1 piston on the rear. That is very interesting. and then we get a semi-clad under tray, a very weird high-speed steering graph. We got a lip on the front but none on the rear, is worth noting on this car. Also obviously updated styling with the vents on the bonnet, one grille across the entire front bumper, and then this grille on the back with the exhaust tips inside of it. This really looks the part as far as, you know, performance versions go. Way more cooling than required. The interior doesn't have as much quality, like less quality on the interior and on the safety and also on the entertainment. So, but it does have launch control. Again, like, I don't know. Oh, this is an adaptive damper setup rather than the gas monotube that we had on the other versions. But this is the suspension setup is pretty much the same still. Very oversteery car though. 3.6 seconds from 0 to 100. $120.4 around the average track. That is very, very fast. Also the quarter mile time of 11.8. $62,900 with no markup. Keep in mind that this is the like bare minimum required price you need to sell this car for in order to cover the cost. So and make a little bit of profit. So given that you're not gonna be selling that many of these, as this is a 500 horsepower all-wheel drive saloon, you should add a markup here of at least, like, at the very least 5%, which would bring this up to $66,000. And $66,000 can buy you a lot of car these days, but not really in this category. I think for this kind of money, in its class, in its kind of somewhat everyday focused family car, it is definitely one of the fastest things you can buy for this money, if not the fastest. But I just don't know why you're so focused on the sportiness aspect of this car when you know, the average person out there, the average driver, doesn't know how to handle oversteer, and therefore, like, you should change a little bit about the suspension, like maybe, I don't know, reduce the spring stiffness a little bit. There we go. You still have 0.99 sportiness. We didn't lose all that much sportiness, but we gained some drivability, and it is now more on the understeer side, which is a lot easier to handle for the average driver, and like, it won't get people killed anymore. So that's probably a nice change of pace. So overall, I like the basic idea of this car, even though I don't agree with all the decisions that you made, especially with the oversteering nature of the higher powered cars. But well, maybe you'll find some customers for it. However, I think the 4-liter is the only car in the lineup that can kind of justify the extremely high fuel usage, especially the 2-liter with the 11.5 liters per 100 kilometers. That one is just off the rails. Like, it's far too thirsty. The 3-liter, did that have all-wheel drive too? No, only the 4-liter 4.0R, only that has all-wheel drive. Okay, so overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Leave a like or a comment if you did. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.